Uh, And for today, we'll be having a discussion centered around robot completions, challenges, and potential causes of failure. Thank you all for keeping to the appointment, for showing interest in this training, and please stay on the call. I'm sure you will hear and learn something new. All right, moderator, next slide, please. So to start this section officially, we would take an opening prayer, but considering the possibility of mixed religion, we would identify with the single umbrella that binds us together, which is Nigeria. And for that reason, we'll take the first stanza of the Nigerian anthem. I'll take it. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's called obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. Amen. Next slide, please. All right. For our section today, this is a brief run through of our agenda. This meeting is supposed to last for an hour and 30 minutes. So it's not that long, and it's promised to be rich and entertaining. We'll be having a quiz section later in the meeting, so we'll try to stay put. All right, next slide, please. So for the person of Emanuela Mikiruka Ibere will be our moderator today. Emanuela Ibere is a driven petroleum engineer equipped with a bachelor's degree from Uniport, enriched by hands-on experience at Sloan BJ and master's in energy, oil and gas. She's currently applying her analytical abilities and project management skills as a business strategist assistant at Western Point Global Solutions. She is known for spearheading maintenance initiatives, collaborating cross-functionally, and developing efficient workflows during her internships. She also demonstrated leadership as Vice President of SP Uniport's Students Chapter and through committee roles in various students' organizations, including a Sustainable Development Goal Project Lead for Upwell Uniport's Collegiates, New Week Chairperson and Event Planning Director for Girl Up Uniport Club. She co-authored 3 technical papers presented at NIES 2023 and is currently serving as SP Section 103 Membership Secretary and Social Media Influencing Lead. Emanuela possesses strong technical foundations coupled with adaptability and communication skills. Eager to continuously develop and deliver value, she is well suited to ramping up quickly and making meaningful contributions to projects and teams. As an enthusiastic engineer, she will be an asset to any organization seeking someone adept to both engineering and relationship building, as she loves to make positive impact. Using the clapping icon, let's welcome our moderator to take over the section. Thank you very much. Emanuela, over to you.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Okay, so I'll take the safety brief for this meeting. As you all know, this is a virtual meeting, and if you're not speaking, please turn off your mic. You only turn it on when you are asked to or during the question session when you're permitted to. Raise your hands if you want to speak. Use the hands up icon. And also use the chat button, like when you want to maybe ask a question, you use the Q, or when you want to comment, use the C letters. Ensure you can hear the fire alarm with your headset on. In case you're using your headset or your earpiece or something blocking you, you could hear any alarms around you. You could hear your environment. And stay alert, stay aware of what's happening around you. and always be safe as we continue with the meeting. So I'll invite the YP chair, Justice Vidijo, to please give us the YP opening remark for this meeting. Mr. Justice, are you on the call?
Yes. Good evening, all, depending on your time zone. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. It is a welcome. One welcome to everyone on the call. To this our monthly YP Insights Forum, and the subject matter we are discussing today is very, very important. We belong to the energy industry, and the wellbore seems to be like a very important factor. Either we make headway, probably when we are approaching our pain zone, and make this subject matter topic very, very important. Yeah. So it's just like what we do every month as YP. We have different topics that we're exposed. We bring subject matter experts to come and discuss on them. So yeah, you rest assured that you can, at the end of the body, you can go and follow through and get all the topics that we discussed during the various months, because they're all recorded on YouTube, and you can. So it's just like you're getting this knowledge for free, and at a very, very great cost. So at no cost actually. So welcome everybody on the call, and also please just pay attention, learn, relearn, and unlearn. Even though you know, just come with a listening and a learning mindset. So thank you. Just next slide, please. So just want to recognize all the senior members on the call. Yeah. Okay, so I think we can do this later, but I just want to recognize my YP co-chair, Manuel Agbo. Most of the senior members, they will join later. Manuel Agbo is on the call. And yeah, so Ella, back to you. We'll continue later. Probably senior members are just closing from work and they will join later. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Justice. So we're going to continue with the meeting. Today's Insight Forum is on the topic wellbore completions, and our speaker is Nana Ijoma. He obtained his master's in exploration geophysics from the University of Leeds and a bachelor's degree in industrial physics from Covenant University. His career journey saw him undergo 3 internship stints at Total Energies, Nigerian Navy, and Econ Science in process engineering, hydrography, and rock physics, respectively. This eventually led him to joining SLB as a field engineer trainee, where he has risen to the position of a senior field engineer with the completions team in SLB Nigeria. He has spearheaded the design, preparation, and deployment of diverse completion configurations across different terrains from land, swamp, shallow waters, and deep water environments. Well, okay, Mr. Nana Ijoma, if you're on the call, please, you can start your conversation. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, so next thing I'll be sharing my screen and confirm if you can see my screen. Can you?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So I will be taking you on completions, right? Challenges and potential causes of failure. And once again, my name is Nana Ijoma, right? So that's just by way of outline, we'll be just having a little overview of completions, right? Just to bring everyone up to speed for those who are not quite familiar with completion, right? And then we'll just review basic well architecture, right? Alongside this introduction. Then we go into the meat of the presentation, which is challenges and failure modes. Okay, and then we'll finally do a design review based on all of the things that we've learned. And then we'll just have a one slide recap, like a very, very brief summary. Okay. So basically, what is completions, right? So if you go online and you try to see what completions is, you probably get 100 definitions, but at least you probably see one of these, right? So you could say well completion incorporates the steps taken to transform a drilled well into a producing one, right? These steps include the casing, cementing, perforating, gravel packing, and installing a production tree. Or you could see something like this, right? That says well completion is the process of making a well ready for production or injection, right? After drilling operations. You'll see another thing that says all operations following the placement of cement behind the production casing, which is performed after field evaluation. Basically, the essence of all of these and the essence of completion is, at least from what I've highlighted in here, or on here rather, you can see that it is basically the process of getting the well ready for production or injection in a nutshell. Okay. So now this is the area that we're talking about all the way to the Christmas tree. So the completion does not stop until you've landed the Christmas tree. Then you can probably hand over to, the production team, and then they can hook up the flow lines and do whatever they like. So now let's just quickly run through a basic well architecture or completion design. Okay. So due to this is it could come in different flavors. Now we could have cased hole or open hole type of completions. Okay. And now, due to the peculiarities involved in installing these completions, because for example, if you want to gravel pack or you want to do some certain type of treatment across the reservoir or perforation, right, or the open hole, you would like to separate them into two, like the lower or the upper completions. That's what we typically do, right? You could have various intermediate zones, but in terms of the rudimentary aspects of it, you can separate it into lower or upper. Okay. So now the lower completion basically is your interface with the reservoir. So at this point, it gives you the opportunity to, you want to do a gravel pack, you want to do stimulation, you want to do a frac pack, you want to pump a micro emulsion breaker or like your mud solve to basically, if you want to treat your reservoir, this is the opportunity that you have in your lower completion. So that's why your lower completion is your interface between your well bore and the reservoir, okay? While the upper completion is now the interface between your lower completion and the surface or your Christmas tree. Okay, so typically you would have things like, let's say, packers in your lower completion and screens, and then your upper completion, you have things like nipples, injection mandrels if need be. You could have gauges, you could have sliding sleeves, safety valves, and definitely a tubing hanger and Christmas tree. Okay. Now that's for a basic completion design, but in the process of designing and deploying, or probably undergoing intervention in any completion operation, what are the potential challenges and failure modes that we could actually see in this process, and what can we do to prevent this? Okay. So now, to make this easy, I've split it into 5 segments, right? Maybe that's the best word to use it, to call it. Is either you're planning to complete a well, or you are at the installation phase of your well, right? Or you are at the production phase of your well, or you are trying to intervene in the well, or you're probably trying to decommission or plug and abandon your well. So the idea of this presentation is that hopefully everyone on this call will be able to take out 1 or 2 things that will help them at each stage of the completion life cycle, okay? And so we can just get straight to it. Now, for the planning phase, so at this stage, what happens? Maybe the geoscience team informs you of their intended production strategy, right? They've told you the economic conditions, like the economic conditions of the company, and they've also told you what they stand to gain or what they probably stand to lose, right? So they've told you how they would like to isolate these zones. And let's, for sake of argument, let's assume that this is subsea, like deep offshore. Okay, they also told you that fluid characteristics, the anticipated reservoir fluid characteristics, right? And then the rock mechanisms that they anticipate, whether it's unconsolidated or consolidated sand and or etc. So at this point, what can actually go wrong? First of all, your budget, right? Your budget, you could either underestimate or you could have either overestimate it, right? So if you underestimate, what's going to happen? There's a very, very high probability that you exceed your budget. And I always try to liken this to building your house, right? And unfortunately, completing a well is not even like building a house. It's probably even more critical than that because you don't want to be midway of your project and then you now realize that you do not have enough money to, go ahead with the operations. That will even cost you more money. Okay. And then you do not to overestimate, which is not necessarily a bad thing at times, but at the end of the day, it will lead to waste of funds, right? Because you could probably have excess material after completing your well. So in some cases, you probably have excess tubing. And what do you do with the tubing? You could probably have maybe excess screens. What do you do with the screens? So you try not to overestimate, okay? And then as far as the equipment is concerned, you could probably even have a wrong design, okay? You could select equipment that is not compatible with whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, and then sometimes the lead times required for these equipment that you want, including your surface equipment, by the way, even your Christmas tree, it could actually be very, very, very long. So maybe you plan to complete your well in, let's say, 7 months' time, but you just started planning, right? And the kind of equipment that you would need is maybe an equipment that will probably take a year and a half to manufacture. So what do? Right? So the next thing that could actually go wrong is in wrong infrastructure selection, right? Again, I said, including the surface infrastructure, just like your Christmas tree. You could select a 10K rated or a 5K rated tool for a 20K rated job or a 15K rated job. That's 15,000 PSI rated job. And if that is the case, then you probably damage all the equipment and everything is just going to be a waste. So what can we do better at this stage? First of all, you need to have a design review with all the parties involved, okay? You need to have a design review with all the parties involved. You need to ask the right questions, okay? Select the most feasible and accurate or adequate design, okay? And when I mean adequate design, you need to make sure you have the right information. I'm talking about your reservoir information, core sampling information, your DST, because you need to know whether you are anticipating a high water cut or if you're anticipating high sand production. So you know whether you are probably going to gravel pack or you're going to go with a standalone screen, or you probably need to deploy like inflow control procedures, right? And next thing is your tubular design and analysis review. You need to be sure that your envelope or your completion envelope, right, can let's say the best word is accommodate all the activities that you like to do during the life of the well. Because if you exceed this, you would actually have some failure on your well. Okay. Then you need to look at the installation efficiency. When I'm talking about installation efficiency, you need to look at how long it will take you to deploy what you want to deploy, and if there are faster ways to do what you actually want to do. So we'll be talking more about this during the course of this presentation. Okay. Now, after you ask all these questions and you consider all of this will enable you to optimize your budget. Another thing you need to do is to actually do some due diligence and look at the regulatory / compliance issues that may be in place. So you need to check and be sure that you have the right approvals to go ahead with whatever operation you want to do. So you need to check, do you need any NEPR license or something along those lines, okay? Next thing, your equipment checks. So now you need to order equipment on time in the right quantities, okay? And then you conduct them system integrated tests if need be at the design phase. So you even know if they're compatible in the first place. And you need to check the kind of companies that you need to render a certain service, okay? And then encourage the vendors to conduct trade visits where applicable. So the moral of the story here is this: do not rush. because at this stage it's actually very, very critical. I think everyone knows that a lot of times we spend a lot of time planning the job. So you could actually use a year to plan a job that you're probably that's gonna take you maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks to execute. Okay. So now let's move on to the next stage. You have secured everything. All your resources have been secured, your rig, your completion equipment, your vendors. At this point, what can go wrong? First of all, loss of lives and property. Safety is everyone's priority, and things can actually go wrong at this stage. You could have stock tools, you could have information damage if you select the wrong tool, and if your procedures are actually wrong. Okay. You could have cases whereby you do not even have a contingency plan available. Okay, so let's say your primary plan was to set the packer with a trip saver mechanism. Okay, a hydro trip, a formation isolation valve, and for example, it just fails. So what do? Do you have a backup plan in place? So you need to make sure that your design takes into account that kind of scenario. Okay. Then another thing that could probably go wrong is your tool might actually just damage in transit, or it might even damage during deployment. Okay. And then another thing that could happen, dropped object in hole. So in fact, all these things will probably even lead to you junking your well. So you've just wasted a whole lot of money, because at this point, in fact, because you know that before you even complete a well, you must have gone as far as drilling a well, and you've spent a whole lot of money, right? So at this point, you do not want to have any of these things happen to you, because you could waste all of that time and money. Okay, so what can be done at this stage? First of all, you need to have a completion of well on paper, which we usually call CWOP. And the CWOP gives you a chance to do your risk analysis, right? And your procedural review. So you do your CWOP with all the parties involved, right? You do this CWOP with all the parties involved. In fact, all the parties required at every stage. And then you also encourage these people to go and visit the rig sites where required, so that they go check and see what are the limits of the rig. Okay, you do this so that if they see any flags, they raise it at that point in time. Sometimes if you need to shut down the operation, you shut it down at that point in time. If you see that the rig cannot perform a certain type of task, you say the rig cannot maybe provide a certain kind of overpull in the case of emergency, right? You do not have a stock tool. So at that point in time, that is what you need a rig site visit for, so that you could catch all of these things on time. Okay. Again, now you need to select the right service tools by assessing the impact of each tool on the performance of flow assurance of the well. Okay. There are tools that are designed for you to use in a case hole setting, and there are tools that are designed for you to use in an open hole setting. You would not like to use one for the other, because you could end up damaging your formation. In fact, sometimes you could even end up having a stock tool again. You do not want any of these two. Okay. Next thing you should do, you should have robust plans to have backup equipment in place. Not just even backup equipment, backup personnel. All right. Next thing, again, you should ensure you have adequate time allocation for equipment preparation. You don't say, okay, I want to complete a well in a month. Then you go start engaging all the vendors 2 weeks to completing the well, right? We are trying to complete a well here. We are not trying to sew cloth for a wedding. Even if you want to sew cloth for a wedding, you don't engage the tailor 2 days or a week before then, right? You engage them. Some people go as far as maybe 3 months before the wedding. So if you could do that for a wedding, for an event that you're just going to sit down and eat and drink and enjoy yourself, why can't you do that for this kind of situation, right? So, but the moral of the story here is you need to ensure you have adequate time allocation for equipment preparation, okay? Another one is you need to ensure that you have a clear and documented communication channel, all right? Because information at this point is very, very critical. So if you have a PSD result or your PSD results, right, you would like to share this with all the parties involved, okay? Let them know all this information, so they select the right type of screen, right? Or maybe if you're expecting high pressure in a certain operation, do not isolate all the vendors from each other. let all the vendors talk to each other, because maybe, for example, you have an operation that will need you to pump in 5,000 psi in the string, and then you're mobilizing equipment that can only give 3,000 psi. So do you shut down the rig just because a cement unit cannot provide up to 5,000 psi? So you would like to know all of these things way ahead of time, okay? Now, and another thing is to ensure that all associated records are available and well documented. Again, I'm talking about the things on the rig. I'm talking about your drill pipe specifications, tubing specifications, equipment specifications, pumping equipment specifications, right? So for example, the reason why your drill pipe specification is actually important, because if you're going to do, for example, a gravel pack operation, you would like to know how many barrels you're going to pump for propant to get to where you want the gravel packing to actually happen. Just to put things in simple terms, right? If you get this wrong, believe you me, you could seriously and heavily jeopardize your operation. And this is just at the installation phase, okay? So now, let's even go to the production phase. Now you've completed the well, right? And the well, at this point, the well, you have completed the well, everybody's happy, they say congratulations, everything is nice and good, okay? So what can go wrong at this stage? First of all, flow assurance issues, right? You're talking about your skin factor, something like this. Because of the things that happen during the installation phase, there's a high tendency for you to contaminate the contact area between the wellbore and the reservoir, basically your lower completions. Okay. And again, if you do not use the right tools or if you not do the right things, you would not be able to mitigate these things. Okay. So we have things that would help you mitigate these things, but maybe you need to just pump acid or like a mud solve, things that will help you dissolve the mud, the filter cake, and all of those things. If you do not do that, you're going to have a skin factor. And for those who are not so, or high skin factor rather, and those who are not really conversant, I'm basically talking about things that would restrict the flow of effluent into the wellbore and up the string. So at this point, you'll be having, like, you see where my laser pointer is, you'll be having things, blocking the pores, and you do not want that, right? And reducing permeability. Okay. Another thing that could probably go wrong is abrasion, probably most likely due to poor sound control. So you would have, like, especially it could lead to pipe failure on surface. And this is just an example of what can actually happen on surface, especially at elbows. And if this can happen on surface, just imagine what's going to happen downhole. You could probably have hot spots downhole, and then you start having irregular production patterns, okay? Another thing that could probably happen again is ballooning and reverse ballooning, which might lead to, in fact, ballooning and reverse ballooning is actually inevitable, but these things, the tubing movements will lead to equipment malfunction due to these activities, right? So you could probably have equipment malfunction due to their operation out of the design envelope, right? You could also have loss of downhole gauge data, okay? You could also have, again, unexpected sound production, and then you could also have hydrates or wax formation. So this is basically what it looks like, right? So if you anticipate these kind of things, the procedures, or there's some things that you could put in place to prevent these things from happening. And we'll be talking about that in subsequent slides, okay? So you can just take some time to digest this slide again. So let me run through it. So you could have a high skin factor, abrasion due to sound control, loss of downhole gauge data. If you have a downhole gauge installed in your well, you have equipment malfunction, probably a high water cost because you never even select, you don't install an ICD device, right? You could have a burst or collapse tubing, you could have equipment failure, you could have erosion, or probably dirty or modified hydraulics, okay? Now, what can you do at this stage, or before this stage rather? First of all, make sure you have a robust completion design, right? Do you need to install chemical injection mandrels? Do you need gas lift mandrels, right? Ensure you have a robust installation procedure, and ensure you do a thorough wellbore cleanout. And part of your robust completion design, ensure you have, or you do like a tubular design analysis, right? So you need to simulate what is going to happen at every point in the well. So during installation, you need to simulate what's going to happen and how that is going to affect the other equipment in your well. In fact, you need to also simulate what's going to happen during gravel pack when you screen out. So when you screen out, there's a very, very high tendency for your screen out pressure to be very, very high. Okay, and that could actually collapse the other equipment that you have above your screen. So you actually want to, factor in all of these things. Okay. And now you also need to look at your intervention and plan for these things. So you need to function your downhole tools as required. Things like safety valves, they need to be functioned regularly. You just don't leave a well to flow and then the safety valve, you just leave it open for years without functioning it. No, you actually need to maybe just try to plan and schedule have like let's say an interval where you go check, okay, my safety valve is working, maybe my downhole flow control valve is doing what it's meant to do, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now you need to produce within the design limits. Control your choke sizes. Again, because you might have done your tubular design and analysis, which we usually call TDAS, okay? And then you might have done all of these things, and you might have given it to the completion engineer to simulate these things, which they end up putting in the end of well reports, right? But you choose to ignore these things, and then you now produce outside the design limits, and then you start having irregular production patterns because you might have exceeded the ratings of one of the tools downhole, which will probably lead to them probably busting or collapsing, or some cases your packer might even unset, and you start having anomalous communication. Okay. Now, now we move on to, and this leads me to my next one, which is proper documentation, right? So you need to be sure that all these things are well documented in your end of well reports, because you can only know that there is even a design limit if there is a record showing that there is a design limit. You can only know that, okay, there was a restriction while going in hole if there is a record showing you that. Okay, so you need proper documentation. And last but not the least, you need to make sure you have the right security measures, because exactly, or an example is us here. We are in Nigeria, and I can guarantee you, and I can tell you for a fact that we've had cases where some people's Christmas trees have been stolen. Okay, Christmas tree, as heavy as it is, can get missing. The same way you can hear that snake has swallowed some money, you hear that someone has swallowed your Christmas tree. So you need to make sure you have the right security measures in place. Okay, so now the next thing, let's talk about intervention. So at this stage now, you have in fact, intervention can happen at any stage during your installation or after your installation, right? So at this point, what can actually go wrong? You could have a whole lot of NPT if you do not prepare. You could have, maybe in some cases, now you might have completed the well, it might actually be an old well, but you might have insufficient well information. And if you do not have insufficient well information, this might again lead to a stock tool, because intervention is not just wireline or slick line. We're also talking about coil tubing, right? You could have a stock coil tubing BHA in hole, a stock wireline BHA in hole, a stock slick line BHA in hole, and you don't want any of these things to happen to you. Okay, you could also have well control issues. You could also have maybe damage to your completion string. But at this point, what can you do to prevent any of these things from happening? Okay, first of all, make sure you have a robust intervention design. Okay, select downhole tools which require little to no intervention, okay, if possible. And ensure that the well is designed to accommodate all of these anticipated intervention operations, right? And then you also try as much as possible to have a robust intervention procedure. So first of all, you need to always perform a drift run, right? Before anything, just perform a drift run. In fact, at least you prefer to even lose a gauge cutter in hole than lose an entire maybe stimulation BHA in hole. You don't even want that, okay? Yeah, you also need to expect the worst and plan for the worst, right? And then the next thing, again, I would say it again, ensure you have a proper end of well report, okay? Now, after you are done with your well, you have exhausted everything that you have gotten all you can get from that well. You are the decommissioning phase. So now the need has a reason to decommission the well. You need to plug and abandon this well. So what can go wrong? First of all, weld control issues, right? As funny as this may seem, you might even exceed the decommissioning budget. And there's also a risk of having a stock to again, or you could probably even have seepage after your plug and abandon operation. So what can be done at this point? First of all, you make sure, and this is me repeating this again, make sure you have a robust completion design. So sometimes you can design your well in such a manner that it will be easy to decommission. So these are things that we are going to look at when we are trying to design our well in the upcoming slides. Okay. So next thing is to make sure you probably introduce a failure point in this well so that when it's time for you to decommission the well, you can easily just either you share that part out of the completion tubing string, or you go out there with a BHA, tag that setting point, and then fire some guns or an EGC, and you can pull out of whole the remaining BHA. Make sure you have a robust plug and abandon procedure. Again, just similar to having a CWAP, right? So you need to do something similar in this operation where you come up with a procedure that helps you to account for all of these things. And last but not the least, this should be the new national term now. Ensure you will have your end of well reports and ensure all available documentation is reviewed before this operation. In fact, before the intervention operation, ensure that you review all available documentation, okay? Now, let's try to design this our well. Remember previously they told us that they wanted to complete a well deep offshore, right? And then they have 2 zones that they wanted to complete, which are not so far from each other. So first of all, you could do something like this. If this is not so visible, I could probably zoom in so you could see. You could do something like this, right? You could just run a single string, right? This would be our option 1. You could run a hole, set a packer. You're going to have a packer here, have a packer here, introduce a nipple here that will enable you to have a closed system and set these 2 packers at the same time. And then you put a sliding sleeve which will enable you access the formation over here. And you use this, the formation under this lower formation will flow in through this this flow part here. So now you have selective production, right? But the reservoir team or the geoscience team has also told you that they expect sand production from here. So you cannot even gravel pack in a single trip. I mean, it's not that it's not possible. It's actually very possible, but you do not even want to do that. Because if you do something like this, believe you me, it will be a nightmare. And it might be quick to deploy, but when it's time to produce this well, it's going to be a very, very serious nightmare because you will start producing sand. Okay. And even if you start producing sand and it's time to decomplete this well, and you want to even pull out this completion string, guess what? You're going to have problems because now this packer here might even get stuck because of sand. So you want to do something that is more robust. And then let's take our option 2. In this case, we are going to introduce lower completion BHA, which alludes to my previous my previous slide, right, where we try to separate the upper and lower completion because we want to do a gravel pack. So now this is what our BHA or our completion BHA now look like. So let me zoom in a bit so you can see. So we're going to have a packer here, right? With this packer BHA, you're going to have a bull nose here, leaving some rat hole. At this point, we are not even sure how long our rat hole will be, right? So now we set this packer, do our gravel pack operation, come in with the upper zone lower completion BHA. We sting into this first lower completion BHA. So now we're going to have a stacked lower completion, like a 2-zone lower completion. Then we do our gravel pack, right? And then we come in with our upper completion BHA, which is almost similar to the first iteration. In this case, now we would like to either produce from this zone or this zone. So what do? We come in with our seal assembly, sting into this our what we call LZMSA, lower zone multi-seal assembly, which will enable us produce from the lower zone, right? And then this upper zone will now flow into these screens, into the microannulus that we have between the tubing and these screens, out of this larger microannulus and all the way to this sliding sleeve. But at this point, it's going to be blocked. So just for the sake of illustration, let me zoom out and use my pointer so that people can actually see what I'm talking about. So if you follow the red pointer, the lower zone will go all the way up here into this point, coming through here, then go up to surface, while the upper zone will come in into this point, come out of this annulus here, then try as much as possible to go into this sliding sleeve. But it wouldn't be able to, because the only way you can do that is if you call slick line to come and shift it open, right, to come into for the fluid to come into the string. But we are in Nigeria, you can't do that. You can't commingle. And even if you want to do that, you first need to come in with a plug, or if you want to now isolate production, you come in with a plug, set it in this nipple profile here, and then shift open this sliding sleeve so that you can have production. In fact, you need to then put a separating tool in the sliding sleeves, then have selective production. But then again, you are in subsea environment. You don't want to be calling slick line, calling a drill ship just because you want to have selective production. We can actually select a device that will limit or reduce the number of intervention required in this well. So we can come up with a third iteration. And we can also use this to reduce the number of runs that we're going to have in our lower completion BHA. So now we have modified it to have something like this. So let me even make this third iteration bigger. Now we're going to have something like this. Okay. Now let me come in with my laser pointer. So now we have a 2-zone lower completion BHA. So what we call an MZ completion. So in one trip, we'll be able to complete the 2 lower completion, that's the upper zone and the lower zone. We're able to gravel pack both zones at the same time. Okay. So if you, just before I zoom in, I can show you something like this. So basically it's going to look like this on this third slide. So you would have one in one run, you'll be able to deploy 2 packers in one lower completion run, and then you sting it to a some packer, right? Because you can't predict the kind of rat hole that you're gonna have. And again, you also want to have an efficient gravel pack. So it will be recommended that you put a some packer there, which you deploy using wireline, right? It's going to be very, very quick. So now you sting into that sun packer, and you in one run, you'll be able to gravel pack both zones with this MZ packer. And then in a similar fashion, you'll be able to sting into this lower packer here and produce the upper zone via the micro annulus and the upper annulus. But now in this stage, we are not going to be using a sliding sleeve. You can introduce a flow control valve, something that you have like this, right? You put an inline flow control valve and an annular flow control valve. Okay. Now you can remotely actuate these things to either you shut the lower zone or you open the upper zone, and then you have a two-way gauge. That's a tubing gauge and an annulus gauge that will enable you get your reservoir parameters from both the lower and the upper zone. Okay. And then now we are thinking about decommissioning the well. So this will be a permanent packer or a cut to release packer. So you can put a nipple here that will enable you to locate, okay, and cut this packer to release, right? And so now you have a robust completion design, and also you're also gonna have a gauge here that will enable you collect your, let's say your upstream data that is above, maybe you're trying to commingle because you've been able to meter both zones. So you could actually have a gauge that will enable you get the commingled, let's say the commingled pressure downhole. And then you can introduce an ejection mandrel because, hey, you are offshore. So you actually expect some certain things from hydrates, maybe wax or whatever. You can actually use this as an inlet to inject chemical into this tubing string that will reduce the probability of formation of those things and increase the lifespan of this well. Okay. And also you must have your safety valve in your tubing hanger, right? Now, so that's for our design review. You can just take some maybe 5 seconds to digest this slide, take a screenshot if you like. Now, just for a little recap. So now we have spoken and then we just need to take away these 5 points. First of all, always conduct an extensive design review at every stage. Always ensure that all operations are conducted within the equipment design envelopes. Allow enough time for preparation, right? ensure every step is well documented, and this is well understood by all the required parties, and ensure you have a robust, future-proof, well design. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I can take your questions now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nana, for this wonderful presentation. It was really insightful, like to get a lot. So please, if you have any question, kindly drop it on the chat box, or you can signify if you want to ask them yourself. So my first question, right? Can you hear me? Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Emanuela, we can hear you.
Okay. My question is this. Throughout the years of you in this field, are there any notable cases or case study of a well-bought completion failure that you could share with us alongside the key lessons learned from those incidents?
Okay, so I would take that. Is there any other question so that I could probably add that to my list?
Any question, you could unmute and ask your questions.
Okay, so now I've seen another question here. It says, how does the budget impact the completion design? Okay. How does the budget impact the completion design? Okay, so while while other people are trying to get their thoughts together or their questions together, let me just answer the first one. So we've had different cases, right? Again, at different stages, right? So let me take you back to the phases, right? So I could probably just walk you through one or two let me say problems that we've had at every stage. Okay, so at the planning phase, what issues have we had? We've had cases where you'd select a rig that cannot even accommodate the spread. And when I'm talking about spread, let's say you want to perform a gravel pack job. We've had cases where the rig that you go and select is not fit to accommodate all the equipment that you would need for that operation. So now people have to start providing or start looking for slimmer versions of their type of surface equipment required for the job. So that's just simple. That's a simple one that has happened at the planning phase. Then during the installation phase, man, there are a lot. In fact, there are some cases where you have cases where during the gravel pack operation, the generator goes off. So then you have a stock too. And you could probably attribute that to maybe poor maybe rig site visits or poor risk assessment. Again, remember I spoke about having a backup plan. So if you are going to inspect a rig or you want to mobilize a rig, or you want to, maybe you're working in an oil producer and then you want to sign a contract to the rig, make sure you have like backup generators in place. In fact, if you want to do a gravel pack operation, just before that operation, make sure that all the generators are working, things like that. And even during installation, there are cases, and maybe due to a breakdown in communication, maybe some little screws could probably just even mess up the job, right? Maybe sometimes people forget a screw in town. So now you're going to have to wait, and maybe you are offshore and you realize it in the last minute. So this is where planning and equipment checks come into play. You need to check your equipment in town. You need to check your equipment while you're on the job. And even if you are working with a British company and then you are a supervisor, it doesn't just mean you go to the company man office and drink tea, tell the camp boss to get the kitchen to make you a very nice meal and you're just eating and crossing your legs. You need to go out there and just continue performing your equipment checks, okay? Then during production, we also had cases where, I think to way back, in cases where the tubing will probably burst, because the client probably exceeded their design limits. right? So they will bust the completion string and then they have to pull out because in fact they start seeing anodos pressure, and then they need to pull out and recomplete or walk over the well, right? And then during intervention, we've definitely seen a lot of cases of having a stock tool. In most cases, maybe they did not anticipate the depth, or maybe it's actually an old well. I do not have enough records of that well. So they probably just went in, they just went full heading, like maybe they didn't do a proper drift run. So they ran into the well and had a tight spot. And then you try to pull out the completion BHA, but guess what? You're stuck in there. Maybe now you have to share out the BHA that you run in hole, the intervention BHA that you have in hole. You need to share it out and leave it in hole. And now you have condemned the well. Maybe the well that was probably giving you 10,000 barrels per day, now even giving you 0 barrels per day because you did not take some time to actually do your due diligence, review the end of well reports, look at the potential tight spots and all of that. And then during plug and abandon, there are some cases where people try to locate a cost to release packer, for example, right? But you cut it at the wrong location. Why? Because they didn't have enough documentation, or probably there wasn't a proper integration test, okay, or like a system integrated test, and this test was not even documented. So when it was time to decommission the well, they started having a lot of back and forth. And obviously, it wouldn't go according to plan. You accrue a lot of MPT, lose a lot of rig days, and God help you, you're using a drill ship. Only God knows how much you'll be accruing per day. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, right? And then I'll move on to the next one. It says, how does the budget impact the design? For this one, honestly, like we try to permit you to speak pidgin, but no do pass yourself, right? Don't try to don't try to go and buy maybe a 13 chrome or a super 13 chrome equipment with the highest rated elastomers, because believe me, there's some equipment that will probably cost you in the realm of $200,000, and there are some people that same $200,000 is the worth of their entire completion string. So you would like to, in as much as you want the best for your well, again, it goes to my next point, right? You need to agree about the economic conditions of your company, right? You need to know, okay, this is where we are, this is what we can afford to do. If at all if you have a budget of 100 naira, right, and it's 100 naira that would probably be sufficient enough for you to complete only one zone in your well, please just do that. Okay, don't try as much as possible to say let's squeeze in and let's just squeeze in another equipment into this. You just probably end up getting substandard equipment. Okay, try as much as possible to ensure you have original OCTG. I'm talking about your tubing. Okay, I'm talking about your valves, everything. So you ensure you have the right trade inspectors to check these things. No say because you want to boycott one step that will probably save you 100 to maybe 300,000, you end up accruing damages of 35 million. Okay, no, you don't really want to do that. Okay, and then I think that pretty much answers the question of budget. I hope I tried to answer your question as well. And then the next question here says, what are the core skills required for well completion? I reckon, okay, I should address this to people that would like to have a career in completion. I think for me, I would just say just be someone, if you can learn, if you're a fast learner, I think. If you're a fast learner, like me, I have my background is in geophysics, to be honest. So it's a matter of, because a lot of these things are not really taught in school. You probably just learn the rudimentary in school, but that's pretty much it. At this point, it's a different ball game. It's about getting familiar with your tools, being able to interface with everyone, the reservoir engineer, the geoscientist, the pumping team. It's a little more, you need like project management, okay? So it's a little bit of everything, but the core of it is that you need to be teachable. you need to have the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? Because as you, maybe if you try interacting with some of your cohorts in this field, you will be learning or probably having a new course every year, okay, including myself. Okay. Okay, so I've seen a question. It said, when you have several wells to complete in a single campaign and at the planning and installation stage, there are times one can assume that based on the first few wells, installation design and overall reservoir characteristics of the remaining wells would likely require similar designs, and then plan a budget accordingly. Do I need to plan for each well independently? Okay, so this is a, well, thanks for this question. It's actually a very good question, right? So this is, will I say yes and no? So so in some cases, in this case, like you said, you want to do a campaign, right? And prior to the campaign, you would have indicated the number of wells you want to drill. Let's say the campaign requires 5 wells. So we can more or less infer that, I mean, now this is where the geoscience team comes in, right? Maybe based on their extrapolations, they can decide to come up with draft designs per well. Maybe, or some, they can say some wells, they want to use them for injection, etc. But you could also, let's say, propose, or I can actually propose that maybe the first well, they can use that well for like to do things like your DST, get enough core samples or core sampling to be sure at least that we are even selecting the right screen size, right? You need to be sure, okay, know what is, maybe if you're going to do a DST, ensure know what your anticipated production rates are, right? So, or in some cases, you can, if you're really confident in your interpretation of the subsurface, you might as well just, you can confidently maybe put like 70% or 80% confidence level and complete about, let's say, if your original plan was to probably complete about 8 wells, you could probably do like 5, then observe the performance of those wells, then come back and do another 3 wells or something along those lines. All right. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Right. The next person says, how do you address the problem of liquid loading in multiple reservoirs? This one is, it will be more or less a, will I say, well, I would like to, this kind of thing, also, I would like to see the completion string, right? Because again, if I do not have the completion BHA or the completion design, I would not be able to, will I say, explain the best way to intervene in these kind of problems, because a lot of times you probably just don't need to do intervention in these things with coil tubing, right? But, or maybe sometimes you might need to just control your flow, like your choke sizes or something like that. But again, I need to see what is downhole to, come up with a proper, let's say, proper recommendation. But if you have more information, you can actually share that, right, with regards to your wellbore. So next question, it says that the Packers in my third iteration does not have a feed through. How do we communicate to the downhole gauge? That's a good question. So let me show you that again. So let me take it out, and I come in here. Okay, so here, right, I believe you're talking about this one. Okay, let me take it back to this here. So in this case, right, the way we will be taking readings from this our reservoir is not, the gauge is not going to be directly at this reservoir. You can see where my hand is, my virtual hand is. It's not going to be at this level here, right? The gauge is going to be at this level. So you can actually deploy. So we have gauges that read tubing and annulus. So on this mandrel, you install a gauge that is going to enable you get reservoir characteristics, or not, well, reservoir temperature and pressure from this lower zone, because as it's flowing in through here, the pressure at which it's flowing and the temperature of the fluid coming out of here will be detected by the tubing section of the gauge. And now this zone, the pressure, right, that is coming out of here, believe you me, you're going to have pressure trapped because you're going to have a packer here, a seal unit here that is isolating these two zones. So that's this zone, a packer here, and you also have a packer here. So this whole zone from here to this microannulus in here will be the pressure of this reservoir. So you take that as an opportunity to meter that section via the annulus section of this gauge. So now you'll be able to read the annulus pressure and then the tubing pressure, which will be able to give you the pressures of both zones. So obviously you're going to get the TVD, that's the true vertical depth where the gauge is located, right? And then you get the true vertical depth of where your reservoir is located. So you know how to calibrate your readings effectively. So maybe if you're expecting like in terms of the fluid gradient between this across the perforation and then your gauge, if you're expecting it to give you an additional, let's say 10, 20, 30, 100 PSI, you could add that to whatever reading you're getting from your gauge and so on and so forth, okay? Now, I'm seeing another one. Okay, it says, okay, multiple zone reservoir. Okay, so Kem Kama, yep, I hope I'm pronouncing the name well. Maybe this for your question, I would like to have more information about the well because that will definitely require some level of either intervention or something along those lines, right? So it says, would I prefer the third iteration to a dual string completion? If yes, why? Okay, so it all depends, okay? In a subsea environment, 100% I'm going to prefer this. 100% I'm going to prefer this, right? On land, I could actually just, go into a single selective or go into a dual string here, which is actually not also a bad idea. But for subsea, 100% I'll probably go for this, right? Because first of all, at least I for one, I've probably not seen a subsea landing string with a dual string BHA. It's not even common, and even if you want to do that, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Okay, and then you also need to look at intervention and all of those things. It's going to be a very, very complex operation. And then another thing that we might even determine your again, this is subsea, right? Another thing that would need to determine whether you want to use dual string or single string, you need to actually check what facilities have in place or the plan facilities have in place to offtake this well. Because if you're going with a dual string, that means you need a dual tree, right? So now you're introducing an extra wing valve, right? So now that means the facility team needs to provide an additional intake into their surface flow line or to the manifold. And did they plan for that? So you actually need to consult everyone in this case. But in a land case, it really depends on what you are trying to achieve. If you're trying to save money, you can probably go for a dual string, but you would risk in terms of your trade-off, you might not be able to run a 4.5 BHA or maybe a 5.5 or 5-inch tubing that's going maybe because if it is a high pressure well, you might I would not maybe recommend the dual string for you, to be honest. But again, it all depends on all these things. So that's why I said during your design, you need to talk to all the parties involved, right? The completion team is just there to give you what, especially the reservoir team, the completion team is there to give the reservoir team what they want. So what's their depletion strategy or for this, or do they intend to suck everything out in 1 year? Whatever they would like to do, okay? So again, you just need to consult everyone. So Emmanuel Iber again, he says the gentle reminder, okay, then next, maybe I could just, so please, I'll just take a last question, okay? It says, please give a quick remark from the casing. Please give a quick remark from the casing to the installation of the tube. Quick remark from the casing to the installation of tubes. I want to believe you're talking about tubular makeup. Okay. This you need to ensure that you have the right tubing vendor or tubular company that is going to make up your tubes. I hope this is what you're talking about. Okay, but anyway, you need to be sure that you monitor the torque values, okay, at each point in time. So even if you're talking about casing installation, right? In fact, let's even talk about the casing design. Ensure that the casing design is even right for the job. Because, and even if before you even select the casing or after you select the casing, because a lot of times the person that is going to supply you the packer and other accessories might not even be informed about the casing size you're going to select. Okay. So you need to ensure that those two people know about the casing size, so that you do not select the wrong packer for or the wrong packer for another casing type. And then talking about the casing installation themselves, ensure that you select let's say the right thread for the job. So I do not want to advertise any company here. I'm not getting free promotion, but ensure that you have a premium thread. Okay. You can take an opportunity to look at the various thread types, but um, you could check and see and check and confirm that you have a premium thread, right? This is for both your casing and your tubing. And make sure that when you are installing these things, you have the approved or unapproved vendor that is there to inspect the tubing before makeup and then inspect their torque chart, right? So that you'll be sure that the tubing or the casing is made to spec. Because if you do not do all of these things, believe me, you complete the work, they tell you congratulations, they call you back in a week. Like, guess what? The tubing has burst, or probably the tubing has parted, or the casing you're having, seepage in your casing and you're producing oil from your casing. So I hope that has been able to answer um, all your questions, right? Thanks again for your time. Okay, so over to you, Emanuela, and I think that should be all of the questions here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anana. Thank you for such an insightful presentation. Yeah, I could say I learned a lot. Very important. Take home. You have to do proper planning and documentation before and after your completions. Nice one. So can you please stop sharing so that I could share my screen? Okay. So the next action in line is certificates and photographs. And Nicholas, please, can you hear me? Okay, before then, can
Yes,
we
I can hear
just,
you.
okay, what's the plan for this?
Okay, just briefly, just stop sharing so that I get the other view where everybody's picture will be shown. Please, let's turn on our videos and I'll take a quick photograph. Thank you. Ella, please just stop sharing for the moment. All right. Let's see our lovely faces now. A lot of people still have their videos off. I wish I. All right. Thank you very much. Please share your screen. Let's go to the next. agenda. Okay, so next on our agenda is the membership drive. Do we have members of the membership team to take the membership drive? Justice, is there any member of the membership team on call? Hello, Justice, are you there? Right.
Okay, Nicholas, I'll just take the membership drive. As you all know, this is SP, Society of Petroleum Engineers, Port Harcourt, Section 103. It's a platform for everyone related to the oil and gas industry to learn, explore, and grow. So it presents different benefits such as strong industry network of leaders and peers and mentors, live technical events. You'll be given the opportunity to network with people from different parts of the industries, different locations. You get to meet people that will give you one or two things to take home. Free and discounted access to educational resources, volunteering, and lots more. So you can join us you could join us via scanning this code or through this link down here, if you can see the screen. And also, students registration is free, totally free. Professional membership is 36,000, while renewal is with 8,000, and there is a slash price for recent graduates, that's young professionals who are recently out of school. You stand a chance to get a free waiver for up to a year or two, provided you follow the right link. So if you are not a member of SP, I think you need to do yourself good and join us. It promises to be exciting and the growth level is massive. Thank you. So yeah, various pictures from our past events. So you could join us today. Thank you.
Sorry for Gilbert. I think I've answered your question in the chat.
Okay, and Nicholas, is there any announcements to be made?
Our next slide, please. So we have a series of events coming up. As you can see on the screen, we have the Inspire Inflation event coming up, which is organized by the D&I Committee of Section 103. It's coming up on the 9th of March 2024. Let's put a reminder on our calendar. We also have the industry collaboration with Mobatech, a model-based technology company. They'll be introducing us to their software, in-house software they built for process simulation, and it's coming up on the 15th of March 2024. Let's also keep a date. Next slide, please. All right, then the very, very much anticipated YP Symposium is coming up on the first week of May. We have short courses, power packs, panel section, Very powerful speakers. Just stay tuned. We also have breakout sections, energy challenges, debates, career fair. So it's promising to be a whole lot. Keep the dates, 2nd to 4th of May. We have the SP Africa YP workshop coming up on the 21st of May too. Also keep the dates. It will be holding in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken, or some African country like that. For those that would like to attend, work towards it. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. All right, so that'll be all for announcements. Sorry, Manuela Abu. All right, Justice, sorry, I was supposed to make you a co-host, and Daniel, please, if you have any other announcement for the house, let's drop our take so that I can move ahead with the energy trivia quiz. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are good, but just at the AYP workshop, that's the professional workshop working in Ghana, yeah, and having the debate, the workshop. It's going to be a very interesting and just watch his face. So you can go ahead, Nicholas, with the energy trivia. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So the geniuses in our midst, it's time, yeah, pay attention. Ella, stop sharing, please. Let me take over. All right, I'll confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, so let's use the instructions on the screen to join the quiz. Go to menti.com and join using the code 55058314, or you can scan the QR code on your screen and join the quiz. Okay, and sorry, I sort of missed out on something before the quiz. We have a certificate to be presented to the speaker and the moderator. Immediately after the quiz, I'll do that. And also, the copy will be sent to their email afterwards. So, do you have people on the quiz yet? How many people have joined? We have 6 players, 7 players. I need 15 players. 15. We have 25 people on the call. All the completion gurus and SP current affair gurus. Oh yeah, it's time. Join the quiz. The
Please,
joining instruction is on the screen.
I need the code
Go
to
ahead.
join.
55058314.
Am I
Menti
permitted to continue?
permitted to join. Yes, now. Just that you like winning. If you win this time, it's invalid though. But join. Let it not be
so
like this.
also as we continue, also want to recognize one of our senior members, Amara Wigwe. She's on the call too. Thanks for joining. Publicity chairperson for the section, the communication chairperson, that's Mwamaka Pauline, is also on the call. The ALP chairperson, Patrick Ezenaki, is also on the call. Thank you.
All right, 3 more players. We have 12 players ready. I need 3 more players. Our completion gurus. Come and share yourself with. Our speaker, please. Don't join. You kill us.
No, I won't.
It's okay. Why are we losing players? 11 players. Okay, 1 more minute, then we'll start the quiz. It's promised to be fun, entertaining, and you learn a lot. The difficulty ranges from intermediate to difficult. There's no easy question here per se. And if you are not having petroleum engineering background per se, I'm sorry. It's just that you understand. Oh yeah, oh. Okay, 12 players, 2 more will start. 2 more. Ten players. Why are we losing players? All right, let's go on. Remember, fastest answer attracts more points. Which of the following is not an advantage of intelligent work completions? Real-time data acquisition, remote work control, improve reservoir management, or reduce operational costs? Which of the following is not? All right, so we have only 1 correct answer out of how many? Out of 8. Okay. So real-time data acquisition is not an advantage of intelligent work completion. Question 2, 12 players. Okay. Let's see what question 2 is. Remember, fastest correct answer attracts more scores. What is the most important factor when selecting the appropriate completion strategy for a horizontal well with a multi-layered formation? The reservoir properties, permeability and pressure is the most important factor amongst these factors here. So take notes. So we have 8 correct answers and 3 wrong answers. Here's our 12th player. Okay, 11 players. Question number 3. Let's go. Player 12, you keep coming and going. What's happening now? Oh, 13 players now. Yeah. In 2023, which SP regional section hosted the largest annual technical conference and exhibition? Is it Asia? Is it Europe? Is it the OTC or Abu Dhabi? Correct. Abu Dhabi hosted the largest ATC last year. Congrats to the 7 correct answers. All right. For question number 4, we have 10 players ready. 11. Let's go. Fracture packing is a technique used in conjunction with hydraulic fracturing. What is the purpose of fracture packing? So we have 6 correct answers. The purpose of fracture packing is to keep the hydraulic fracture open for improved production. They call it something like prop, when you prop it so that it doesn't close back after fracturing. All right, so let's see who is leading. All right, Sarah, wow. Then second is Kenneth Obo. Okay, okay. Who is Shawarma? Okay, so question number 5. Thirteen players. Let's go. What is the primary function of a packer in a well completion? Isolate different zones in the well bore, provide structural support for the casing, allow fluid flow between different zones, measure downhole pressure and temperature. Primary function. We have 10 correct answers to isolate different zones in the well bore and prevent fluid flow. I'm sure if you're listening to this presentation today, you would have gotten the answer correct. Question number 6. We are halfway into the quiz. 13 players on the call. Let's go. What is the most important consideration for ensuring wellbore integrity throughout the completion process? Oh, what is this? Over here, I saw something like an error. Moderator, please confirm if you experienced something similar.
Which is, I don't think there's any problem from my end.
Okay, that's fine. So it's local to me. All right, so the correct answer is maintaining proper pressure during pressure control during operations, like the most important consideration to ensure wellbore integrity during completion. Pressure maintenance. Okay. Question number 7. We have a new player on the call. It's not too late. Anything is possible. What do we have here? What is the main focus of the SP journal? Industry news and announcements, career development advice, historical accounts of the oil and gas industry, original research, and technical contributions. Original research and technical contributions. JPT, Journal of Petroleum Technology. I think it sort of answer itself. Question number 8. A new player on the call. Let's go. Which of the following is not a typical application of downhole pressure and temperature gauges? Identifying potential wellbore leaks is not an application, not. I guess we're all choosing the typical application. We not really take notice of the not. So next question. Okay, let's see our leaderboard. Who is leading? Tara is leading, followed by Shama and Emeka. Kenneth has drops. There's still hope. Okay. Question number 9. 12 players. We've lost 3 players. Which of the following is not a typical material used for real-world SAT control screens? All right, carbon steel is not the correct answer. Is the correct answer, sorry. And one person got it right. Question number 10 out of 12. Let's go. What is the primary purpose of the SP Bridge program? To connect students and young professionals with mentors, correct? Okay. Second to the last questions, 13 players ready. Let's go. When designing a completion strategy for a well with a high pressure gradient, which factor is of critical importance? High pressure gradient, remember. Correct. Completion fluid compatibility with reservoir fluids. Okay. Now, the last question for today. During a well intervention operation, what is the primary purpose of using a coiled tubing unit? Well intervention, coiled tubing. Okay, so everybody will get this one. All right, we have 9 correct answers and 3 wrong answers. All right, so who is our winner? Oh, wow. Okay, our winner is Tara. Tara, please give us a shout out on the call. Let me quickly unmute you and you give us another shout out. What's your name? All right. Okay. That's my okay. So you can unmute and greet the house.
Hello, good evening. My name is Asma. I honestly don't know how I won, but yeah. So
Okay, Asma, it's so nice to have you here. It's evident we have very smart people in our midst. I don't know you personally, but I know the name now. I look forward to seeing you one day. Also, the employers on the chat, we have a very smart completions engineer in the house, so take notes. So glad to have you here. I hope we get to meet physically someday. All right, so for the closing remarks, first of all, I want
Can we do
to,
the certificates before the closing remark? Quickly, so we can-
okay, thank you for that reminder. Okay, just give me a moment. All right. Mr. Justice, if you're on the call, please can you take the certificate presentation? Is Justice still with us? Or Emanuela? Okay, Daniel, please take the certificate presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas. So first of all, I want to say a very big thank you to our speaker for today, Engineer Nana Ijoma. It was quite an insightful session. Like I said, it was more like a crash course for anyone wanting to go into completions, and then handling all the questions the way you did made it quite an interesting session all the more. So on behalf of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, on behalf of the section chairperson, Madam Gozi Okonkwo, and our Young Professionals Chair, Justice Rudigo, presenting this certificate of appreciation to you in recognition of your service as a speaker today during our monthly Insights Forum. So thank you very much for this for your volunteering, and for also coming to share with us insights on well completions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nana. A copy of this would be mailed to you. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, and
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Also in the same vein, like to also appreciate you, Emanuela, for moderating this session. I think it's one of those few sessions we have where the moderator is asking the first set of questions, and it shows how committed, how prepared you were for this particular role. So thank you very much on behalf of the section chairperson and the YP chair, representing this certificate of appreciation to you, Emanuela Ebere, for volunteering today as our moderator during the YP Monthly Insights Forum for February 2024. Thank you very much, Emanuela. We really, really do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Thank you to our speaker and moderator, and over to you, Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Daniel AKK is the YP Technical Assistant Team Lead. Thank you for all you do, a fantastic job. I appreciate. So my closing remarks, I want to also, we can't thank you enough, our speaker for today, Mr. Ijoma Nana, for sharing with us from a wealth of knowledge. I learned a lot. It was fun, insightful, and I really appreciate you. Also, thank you, our moderator, Emanuela, for doing what you do. I can't thank you enough. A big shout out to every one of us that has been instrumental to the success of today's meeting, from the technical committee members to Chirike, that helped me to link me up with the speaker for today, my assistant, and my friends